Let me be blunt, in life, there's no option to avoid hardship. You think you're escaping, but in reality, you're just choosing a different kind of pain. The pain of staying up late scrolling on your phone. The pain of wasting away in a dead-end job. The pain of forced smiles in meaningless socializing. These are all low-level pains. They drain you, yet give nothing in return. Truly wise people choose to take on high-level pains. Things like exercising, studying, self-discipline, and building long-term habits. They're harder in the short run, but they make life easier in the long run. The real question is, which kind of pain are you enduring right now? The nature of low-level suffering. Sunk costs plus ineffective drain. In psychology, there's a term called sunk cost. What does it mean? It's when you know something is meaningless, but because you've already invested in it, you can't bear to walk away. For example, you stay in a draining job, doing repetitive, unchallenging tasks every day. You feel miserable, yet you don't dare to quit because, I've already worked here for 3 years, it would be a waste to leave now. Or you remain in a relationship that has long run dry. Every day is filled with arguments, leaving you emotionally exhausted, yet you don't separate, because, I've already invested so many years in this. This is the trap of low-level suffering. It drags people into a cycle with no output and no easy escape. The more you invest, the harder it becomes to let go, until the suffering snowballs like compounding interest. In sociology, low-level suffering also has another name, structural exploitation. What does that mean? It means your position determines the pain you're forced to endure. Factory workers doing endless shifts to meet KPIs. Delivery riders racing against the system's strict time limits. Young people working late nights just to cover rent or pay off a mortgage. This suffering doesn't come from how hardworking you are, but from being trapped inside a consumption-based structure. In other words, the biggest problem with low-level suffering isn't the pain itself, but the fact that it has no way out. The underlying logic of high-level suffering, delayed gratification plus turning ability into value. The keyword for high-level suffering is delayed gratification. The famous psychology experiment, the marshmallow test, showed us that children who could resist eating a marshmallow immediately often grew up to be more successful. Why? Because they understood one thing. Short-term pain can be exchanged for long-term leverage. That's exactly what high-level suffering is about. You stay up late writing a thesis, not for comfort the next day, but for the degree and the higher platform it unlocks. You force yourself to learn new skills, not for today's ease, but for the ability to switch careers freely in the future. You grit your teeth and keep exercising, not for the soreness, but for being healthier than your peers 10 years down the road. High-level suffering means resisting human nature in the short term, in order to amplify long-term rewards. In sociology, there's a concept called a delayed return class. It means that the higher people climb, the more they understand how to postpone immediate pleasures and instead invest their time and energy into areas that will compound in the future. That's why the poor often endure low-level suffering, while the wealthy often endure high-level suffering. The poor are forced to burn themselves out for survival in the present. The wealthy can actively choose future-oriented suffering in exchange for far greater returns. The difference between low-level and high-level suffering lies in value density. Many people mistakenly believe that, the harder the suffering, the higher its value. That's wrong. No matter how tough low-level suffering is, its value density is close to zero. It's like running frantically on a treadmill. You're drenched in sweat, but you haven't moved an inch. High-level suffering, on the other hand, may appear lighter in the short term, but it carries extremely high value density. It turns your time investment into the very steps that lead you upward in the future. To put it bluntly, low-level suffering is entropy increasing, making the system more chaotic and decayed. High-level suffering is entropy reducing, making the system more orderly and elevating. The three main reasons most people get trapped in low-level suffering. 1. The trap of instant feedback. Low-level suffering often comes with short-term rewards. For example, coasting through a job still gets you a paycheck at the end of the month. Scrolling short videos gives you immediate pleasure. High-level suffering, by contrast, takes a long time to show results. And in between there's only loneliness and struggle. 2. Risk aversion. Escaping low-level suffering means taking risks. For example, Quitting a dead-end job to learn new skills might lead to unemployment and anxiety in the short run. Human nature instinctively resists risk, so many would rather waste away slowly in low-level suffering. 3. The inertia of social structures. Education, the workplace, and even family ties all push you toward prearranged suffering. For example, stability often means locking yourself into a safe 9-to-5 job with a mortgage, while being a good child means putting family expectations above your own dreams. These hidden social rules condition people to passively endure suffering, rather than actively choose it. How to switch from low-level suffering to high-level suffering. Here are 3 hardcore actions, save them. 1. Do a suffering audit. Spend 10 minutes each week listing all the pains you're enduring. Then ask yourself 3 questions. Is this passive? Can it accumulate into long-term value? Will it still matter 5 years from now? If the answer to all 3 is no, then it's low-level suffering. Cut it off immediately if you can. 2. Design your suffering with an upgrade mindset. Deliberately put yourself into high-value pain scenarios. For example, afraid of public speaking? Force yourself into a speech training class. Weak at writing? Set a goal to write 100 articles in a year. Poor health? Sign up for a basic fitness program. Remember, high-level suffering usually means pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone, not wasting away inside it. 3. Build a compound interest account. Treat every form of high-level suffering as an investment project. Fitness equals physical capital. Learning equals cognitive assets. Networking equals social capital. When your energy is low, remind yourself, I'm not suffering. I'm investing. The real watershed in life is not between smart and foolish, nor between rich and poor. It's between those who spend their whole lives passively enduring low-level suffering, draining themselves to meaninglessness, and those who actively choose high-level suffering, turning pain into leverage and climbing higher and higher. So remember this. Pain is unavoidable, but choice is yours. Your task is not to escape suffering, but to choose suffering that's worth it. Because only those who willingly endure high-level suffering deserve greater freedom.